God had a beginning. Before him there was nothing. He taught us that God taught him that there is yet, however, something in space which he described by the word force and by a few other terms. And he said that this force is to think they have discovered this force through deduction in the early 30s, which they call dark matter. They think that it was out of this dark matter that the first life and all else came. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that the first life began as a single atom. It made movements that formed the basis of mathematics. 1s and 6 and 0 was involved. That's what I was touching yesterday. Mathematics began with the movement of God. But that was on a subconscious level. You hear me? And that's how all of us came the same way. These movements have deeper meaning, some of which I'm not going to touch, but this part I am touching. The first movement, God made one. That's how one got here. And then he formed himself. It went down and formed then a 6. That's how this is time. But that's not all there is to that. I don't want to get into this in the wrong way. That sounds like I'm playing with a bunch of numbers. We're not talking about numbers. We're talking about what numbers really are. Okay? God's own movement created the base of mathematics and all aspects of mathematics. That's why talking to the brother yesterday who was a mathematician. Each human being in this room, every brother and sister that you see, represent in their person the power, the direction, and the purpose of the motion of this life came from within it. How long it took. See, that's your spirit there. The spirit is always in the flesh. It can be sent from here to there, but it has no meaning unless it gets in what it's sent to. The thinking of the prophets in the past is in the atmosphere. The thinking of the gods in the past is up of the atmosphere. And all of us who are growing up, you're growing right up into that. You wonder where some of your ideas come from. Bing, bang, boom, boom, wow, whoa. That's what it is. You are babies of God. We don't know how long it took him. But what eventually emerged from that darkness and from that which was first built up from that first Adam was a black man. Elijah Muhammad went on to say, if you could kill everybody on the planet, which you can't do it. You can't do it. But if you could do it, then everything would collapse and it would be as it was in the beginning. Nothing. Out of that nothingness, a black man would emerge again. He would start everything all over again. Praise be to Allah. So we don't know from what Elijah Muhammad told us that Master Prophet Muhammad told him. We don't know how long it took him to create himself, for he had not yet laid the base for counting time like we do, but what preceded time is his motion. He started building up mathematics. That was to come later after his creation of the sun. It took a certain amount of time for him, not only to produce brains, but for those brains to become mature enough for him to experience consciousness. We've learned that this first man experienced pain. Exactly what kind, I don't know. But this was due to his own process, the process, rather, of his own self-creation. And every one of you know, every creative activity you are involved in produces pain in yourself and discomfort. And after that, you want some kind of rest, some kind of ease. You go to sleep, whatever, right? Take a vacation. Don't you? But here's the thing. Don't stop on the pain. There's a book you should consider called Pain. The gift nobody wants. But it's a gift. If you could not experience pain, you'd be on your way to death. Now, the meaning of self is huge. Note that all creativity involves pain or at least great discomfort. And the higher the wisdom and the more valuable the goal we seek, the greater, as the minister says, is the difficulty factor or the suffering that is involved. God's self-creation is the root of this statement by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Everything of good has trouble in its infancy. That's the way it was from the giddy up. He created himself with needs. I'm going to say that again. God created himself with what? Yes, he did. That's where your needs come from. Mine too. But he also created himself with the infinite capacity to satisfy his own needs. But with us, he produced us interdependent. And that's why your talents are several and many and not exactly the same. Because in each of you is the answer to what the other one needs. Allah fixed it up just right. That's why to love one another is natural. Not to love one another is unnatural. You can't get nothing done. He desired two things, comfort and company, by himself. It's rough creating yourself. He desired change from pain to ease, from discomfort to comfort, and change within himself. He also desired to see another being like himself. He was confronted with a set of problems, the first of which originated within himself. The other set of problems were external to himself, for beyond himself was pitch blackness, total darkness, and nothing. It was also cold. So he went to war and worked to change things, both within and outside of himself. Okay, now, the first one certainly changed the problems of his first condition. He did it through the power of his mind. Stop worrying. Worrying is destructive thinking. As I said yesterday, you know what worry is, in essence? You imagine the worst possible thing that can happen with the power of your mind. You use the power negatively to conjure up the worst possible thing, and then you react to it like it's real. That's worry. Why not use that same energy to go the other way? Huh? And produce what you want. Now we're into the home stretch of this. The first God studied. What did he study? Himself. There was nothing else for him to study. What motivated his study? Desire. For what? Change for the better. The first study ever made was what? Theological. How could it be other than theological? Why? Because he was God. So God's study of God was, of course, theological and mathematical at that. This study was and is the source of all studies. He thoroughly studied himself in a supreme effort to satisfy his desires, which could only come through the changes which he himself determined. He came to see what was within himself which could resolve both set of internal problems just mentioned. Now, through this process of study, he generated the image of what? Woman. He didn't start worrying. He engaged in constructive thinking. And he formed woman, his second self, from himself in his imagination. He conceptualized, designed, and determined the structure and function of woman. Why? Because she is the resolution of the problem of his discomfort, and she was the means by which other beings could come into existence. This is the root of the pair principle mentioned throughout the Holy Quran. His study was motivated by the highest kind of self-love. She was in it. He loved himself. So he created her out of his love for himself, which was the love of her as she was an essential part of himself. She could not help but love him when she came forth, for it was from his love that he created her. The process and all the steps involved, or all the steps involved, by which he created her was characterized or permeated by this process which was generated by his love. Brothers, this is at the root of marriage. You know why marriage is called a mystery in the Bible? You ever thought about that? It's called a mystery, is it not? But the origin of it we were never told. How can a man reform the nation if he doesn't know women? A man doesn't know what a period is once a month. There's things about women that you can own. In fact, I'll put it like this. There are things about men that women cannot understand except through talk. There's things about women that men cannot understand except through talk. Meaning you must get into each other's spirit. You have to communicate, or you'll never understand the other. Because women are not men and men are not women. Right? Okay. This area over here is the same. I'm not a woman, but I imagine salmon tastes the same to you as to me. Right? Bean soup is bean soup. Coal is coal. Putting your finger in a hot pot, 212 Fahrenheit, is going to burn both fingers the same way, right? Generalizing to make a point. This is important to keep in the back of your mind as we go through this. In those of you who have studied physics that govern creation, right? The most powerful, they give it a name. I think they call it the strong force. That is what? That's the law by which things hold together. And you take one hydrogen atom, just one, which you can't see with the eye. If we could take one right now, reach our hands in there, which we can't do it like that, and yank apart the electron from the nucleus, we would have to exert a force superior to the force holding it together. And if we did that, it would kill everybody in this room. And then some. Kill a lot of folks. Now, that's you. You're made up of what? Atoms. And the strong force, how are you held together? By a law of nature. How ought we to relate to one another on the spiritual side of what you call the strong force, which preceded the strong force called divine love? Got it? Because you generate power. Think on the power now. The power in us. This is at the root of this concept. Because it's what you call fission. Fission is that by which the sun burns. Burns long time. Been up there a long time burning. Fusion, pardon, not fission, fusion. Fission blows apart like the hand grenade. Fission blows apart much more powerful because it involved the separation of the atom. Getting my point? Oh boy, you get down to the nitty-gritty force that holds everything together. All the other laws, they say, are dependent on that. If the stuff don't hold together, you ain't got nothing. Who started that? The first God. Out of what? An atom. That love was the basis of the natural and heavenly state between the two on down into the trillions of years. Now we're in the fallen state. See, the fallen state is not just 6,000 years ago. Also goes back 66 trillion years ago. You follow me? We have not way back before here. We were some heavy people. Women produced children that put stars in the sky by thinking it into being. That's how we got it up there. We just thought it. That's what the stars, that's the power of positive thinking right there. We were more tender back before then. And the strongest man on this earth is brother and sister in Africa and over here in America. The brother and sister over here got some juice. Come on now, let's face it. The most powerful people, that's right, this woman, they don't woman to equal this woman over here, man. You know what she's come through? Same thing you came through. Hell. To the bus. There is no such thing as a worse hell than what we've come through. And Master Farad Muhammad in this city told Elijah Muhammad one day, he said there is no punishment that he could put on America to equal the evil they've done to us. None. Now, I mean, people talk about the kingdom of heaven, talk about making a better world. You can't talk about that, man, without getting the male-female thing straight. Do you agree? Now, this first God was aware of his state after his own creation. Then he was wise enough to study and improve his state. Through this intense and thorough study, he generated an increase of his self-knowledge. Then came the exercise of further wisdom to determine the process by which he would create her. Again, this first study was mathematical theology. As a study of the human being, both male and female, reveals mathematics infinitely beyond the mathematics generated by this world's best thinkers. We are also so very blessed today to be given even a little insight into the inner nature of the origin of everything, including God, which gives us his insight into every reality down to the present. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us his life on these other planets. And he compared you sisters to the planets. The man had to go through a training that's beyond about the woman that you can bring out of men that which nothing else can bring out, sisters. Even sisters in a messed up state of mind force the man to have to think and exercise control of himself. Yes, he gains mastery of himself in relationship to you, as you do the same thing. Now, I'm not talking about the woman in that respect. I'm talking about the man. That man was taken through many changes. He went through a terrible, terrible series of experiences. But it forced him to look all the way into the core of the self. He told us that in 1961, that the life on the other planets, which is inferior to this life, nevertheless, it helps to keep and maintain God's sovereign position over creation. And sister, that's what you do for the man. Oh, yeah. I'm not calling you inferior. I'm saying you help man rule. Man can't rule without your help. No man is born into this world and dies uninfluenced by women. Not even if you're a hermit. Women are here by the billions, aren't they? Are you seeing my point so far? Now, brother, look. The womb of the woman is that universe again in which life is formed. But it's even more than that. Because, brothers and sisters, look. I mean, just imagine, sister, just imagine the power that God has given you to form new life and determine the capacity for future gods and goddesses. My Lord. Think over the scientists who are the senders of the prophets. They were born of women. Sisters and brothers, let's be very honest about ourselves. Be very honest about what we know. There's a great deal about life and space, a great deal about the world, the vast universe we're in, that we don't know nothing about. And so part of Elijah Muhammad's education involved a thorough knowledge of the woman, because there are some things that is just not fit and proper for a man to say, women in general. He says it through the wives. Follow me? And women should teach women certain things. You agree with that? It's just not proper for men just to come around saying everything to women, even if you know it. And now I've scratched the surface of some things, and I'm going to stop right at that door. What kind of education do you have to actually rule creation? Okay? Elijah Muhammad was to learn. But all of us have to learn. We can't learn it. We're on our way to learning it even now as we speak. Thorough knowledge of self. If each of us is a universe in miniature, then you have to learn all the components, the principles on which every component is built, the law that governs each part. And it is that kind of, I say it like this, profound insight that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was taken in. What he said to us, that he was taken into the knowledge of some things that we already know, but a deeper understanding of. Even such little things as the origin of the watermelon. We love watermelon. Ain't nothing wrong with that. It comes from the cucumber. Did you know that? That the onion, much of what your nerves are made of is right in the onion. Do we have nerve problems? Got a lot of depression and stuff? Stress? Go get you an onion and bite it like you would an apple. If you can't handle that, put it between some whole wheat toast. If you can't deal with that, put a little lettuce on it. But mainly eat some parsley, because parsley knocks out the onion funk coming out your mouth. Don't nobody want to hug or kiss you if you smell them bad. You know what I mean? Can't go in the polite company like that. Can't go in the bus or the train like that or the airplane like that. Eat parsley, it knocks out the onion, but your nerves are being fed. There's many things that Elijah Muhammad was shown, some of which he shared with us, some of which might sound like magic to you. But among the things he taught him, that he taught us, was that there's life on the other planet. That was back in the 30s. We all get a lesson called the actual facts. It's the first written lesson we get. Elijah Muhammad went through 4 grades of school. Yes, he could read, but he wasn't what you call a scientist. He was a hard-working man. And when the depression hit, he, like everybody else, was on the welfare. Now, what came out that man's mouth? There ain't no way in hell he could have got that on his own, and not that quick. One of the heaviest things you can look at that I got in detail in this book elsewhere is this. When I came in the nation some years ago, one of the things I did, the same figures that we have about the measurements, all those measurements, there's about 20 of them that we're given. What I have found is with the passage of time, the white man's figures get closer and closer and closer to the figures Elijah Muhammad was given. Not only about measurements on the earth, but even measurements in the planets. How far this is from that, and what's the shape and size of this, that, and the other. How did he get all that information? He got it from his teacher. Well, who was his teacher? How is it that education, as we say, has grown gradually? I mean, from the 30s to the 90s, where his figures are getting more and more like the figures of Elijah Muhammad. Why do I bring this up? Because it's one of the many, many innumerable pieces of evidence that should force you to think deeper. Something heavy is going down, man. Something is heavy is going down, woman, and you are at the center of it. And you can't remain dumb forever about what's going down that involves you, that you can't get out of.